So this is going to be a panel discussion. So kia ora koutou katoa, welcome back. Panel discussion with 4 leaders from our member organisations who, as well as doing really awesome work themselves, are utilising and working with our best practice guidelines. I will bring up the panellists very shortly, but before we do that, I just wanted to give you a little bit of a background on the best practice guidelines. So who's actually seen our 23 best practice guidelines or used them? Oh, I might not need to talk for very long then. Here's the paper copy. Okay, I will be quick, but I think there's some key stuff that I do want to share about them that I think is relevant for all audiences, and I'll get started. So, released in 23, we actually, as Karen pointed out, we actually already had a set of guidelines. In my notes, I've always called them being created in 2011, but 2012 actually, and it was originally a paper-based tool. And in 2022, we launched a year-long review, and over 300 people and organisations contributed to reviewing and updating the 2012 guidelines. Our goal was for them to be more accessible, targeted, and focused. And so we did a review. We started with some high-level review stuff, and we did some research. And through our early research, we identified 11 evidence-based areas where so there was evidence that these particular practice areas did contribute to better outcomes. And from those 11 international areas, we identified 7 for our New Zealand context. This is an early working picture. It kind of gives you a sense of the complications and bringing together old guidelines, new guidelines, but trying to kind of communicate it with people when they didn't necessarily know what our old guidelines were. So we're trying to make sense of a new approach, but one of the key things to highlight here, which you can see, is that key for us was putting the volunteer at the heart of the guidelines and at the process. Previously, we'd designed them around what organisations need, and this is about what volunteers need. And there's, it also highlights that although there's stuff that happens in the 7 practice areas, it actually sits within a whole pile of other stuff within an organisation: values, policies, procedures, cultural, social things that all impact on how we show up and engage with volunteers. So we took the 7 practice areas. Oh, I've missed a slide. So we actually started with a new framework, which was the volunteer life cycle model, basically, is what we helped us shape the new framework. And we kind of took the 7 areas that we identified as relevant for New Zealand and kind of put them into the model that you see here on the right. So that kind of also demonstrates some of our early thinking of the how they might come together. We then took the 7 areas out to the community, and over 60 people from a wide range of organisations participated in a co-design process with us, including people in the room. We used an online platform. We're a very small national organisation. Doing it online meant we heard from people from right across the motu. And each of the sessions explored what a volunteer needs and what good looks like for each area. The process actually generated thousands of digital post-it notes and about 13,000 words and 54 pages of content. So we did use some early versions of AI to reduce that back and synthesize, because there's a lot of commonality across each of the 7 areas. So, So I just wanted to also highlight, so each of the 7 areas has principles that guide the, what you could do in that particular area. But we also have identified through the process and working with our kaitiaki, these overarching principles for the guidelines. So, aroha, volunteers are a taonga, a treasure, and should be recognised for the generosity of their contribution with aroha. Hononga, building connections, kai rātaki, we are all leaders, manaakitanga, volunteers sit at the centre of our work, everyone plays a part in nurturing and growing volunteers. Tira, were you involved in the original guidelines? Yeah, so one of the principles in that, there were sort of 4, was about we were all responsible for volunteers and looking after them, paid, non-paid, everybody. So I think that is nicely captured in the manaakitanga principle that we have there. Ngātahi, inclusion, collaboration and connection of volunteers is vital. Tuao, so tuao means volunteer, but it also means to lead by example, and for me that's got a nice, so it also means, so tuao, volunteers lead by example, tika, we do what is right, and whanaungatanga, we build enduring and reciprocal relationships. So the final product, we synthesised a lot of output to get to these, but I think one of the key things, and we ran a plain language review over it. We had to do that twice actually, but so just try to make it simple and accessible. They all are all up online as well, so you can dip into one of those areas, and you don't have to do the whole thing. And they're a framework to inspire and guide. They're not like things you have to do. Like there is no right or wrong, and every organisation will do it differently. Which is why we're going to have a panel discussion now with 4 people to highlight some of the different ways that people are using the guidelines. So far they've been used for tools for advocacy, reviewing and designing internal training, a training tool for people new to working with volunteers. One of the things we didn't think about until after they were published but was that actually they're a great guide for new volunteers to know what to expect when they turn up to volunteer as well. Okay. Just going to invite my panellists up now. Just get my notes. Annalie Hayward. Kia ora, Annalie. Annalie is one of 2 Auckland-based community service managers from Whanau Whina Plunkett, charity and support service for the health and wellbeing of tamariki under 5 in their whānau. I'm pretty sure everybody in the room knows who Plunkett is. Please take a seat where you feel comfortable. We also got Chris Emmett from Surf Life Saving New Zealand, General Manager of Club Support and Capability. Chris recently completed his MBA and brings a future-focused approach to the ability to lead transformational change. A career deeply rooted in community, he's always championing volunteer inclusion within programs and organisations and the power of volunteering. Beth Jobin. Woohoo! Woohoo! Beth is the People and Culture Executive for New Zealand National Field Day Society, where she also serves as a volunteer manager before transitioning into the HR space in 22. Beth spent 30 years supporting C-suite executives. She's like the boss of the bosses. And as an administrative professional, and she's got an empathetic compass and a strong strategic approach. Last but not least, please welcome Sheena Revington from Ballyful, New Zealand. I just need to surface that I'm on the board of Ballyful, so I know how awesome their programs are. Sheena is the Chief Executive. Bellyful's a volunteer-powered charity, 700 volunteers led by Sheena and the team, delivering and supporting whānau with children and babies in times of need with home-cooked meals from volunteers across the country. Right, so I thought I'd start down, so we're going to just go through a range of questions and then hopefully also you guys will have some time for questions as well. Anna-Lee, do you want to just share a bit about the initial steps that Plunkett has taken in relation to looking at and working with the best practice guidelines?
Sorry, I was just saying it's a little bit scary up here. So, so about 18 months ago, can everyone hear me? Yeah?
I can.
Yeah. About 18 months ago, I was asked to relook at our volunteer strategy, given that it was last revamped in 2018, so it was a little bit out of date, and we all know that volunteering has changed, as we've talked about today. So really, thinking about the document and the guidelines that we had and what volunteering looked like now, it was a really good opportunity to take what you had put together and work together with that document. It was a saving grace for me to have that document. It's so helpful and so many tools in there. So we've really looked at the relationship and the volunteer journey from start to finish, and it's really important that you do that. I think sometimes it is easy to, once you've onboarded volunteers, sometimes the communication isn't as often as it should be, but it's really important that you get that right, especially in this challenging environment. There's lots of opportunities for volunteers. They have many places they can choose to give their time, so you want them to have a really positive journey. So we've really looked from the very start on that recruitment and right through to when they leave, so that's equally as important. So using those guidelines that you put together to really understand that volunteer journey and how we think about volunteers. We should treat them just like we would our paid staff. So, yeah. Does that answer the question?
That's awesome. Thank you, Anna-Lee. And you're not the only one who gets nervous.
Of course.
One of the things that I really wanted to make a point of is that although we've published them, they are a co-design by the power of the brains trust of the sector.
Of course.
And I think that for me highlights why they're really powerful, because it's a tool that is able to be one of the first pieces of feedback we got was, these are great because now I can have a conversation with my manager or my executive leadership team that this isn't just what I'm saying, this is what the sector is saying. Okay, thank you, Anna-Lee. Chris, nicely lined up and...
Yeah, that worked out well.
It did, yeah. Did you plan that? Obviously, Surf Lifesaving is doing a lot of different things that are in the good practice space, not just necessarily as a result of our guidelines, but what steps have Surf Lifesaving taken around recruiting and engaging diverse volunteers and making the environment inclusive to new volunteers?
Yeah, so we've traditionally been quite a closed shop. So Surf Lifesaving New Zealand's taking the central lead for a volunteer recruitment campaign for the first time in its history. That means that we're taking that central lead and we're trying to bring volunteers through our organisation with a better pathway. We're trying to let them know about expectations, because if we left it up to our clubs, that's really variable for us. And some volunteers have a great experience and some not so great. So we've tried to take the central lead. It's a 3-year program for us. We're looking for 1,000 new volunteers throughout the country. And we've actually, as organisations, we're experiencing those same headwinds that big organisations are. So we're actually trying to go for some of the high-hanging fruit, what we call high-hanging fruit, which is Surf Lifesaving has a really strong youth movement. And 90% of our pipeline of new volunteers coming in are youth. So I know a lot of other organisations don't have that and would be really jealous of that. But for us, we were really reliant on that. And when that closed off during COVID, we actually dropped away. So we're trying to re-establish our numbers. And that high-hanging fruit we're talking about is we're going for more diverse volunteers. So we're going for people that can help in the administration side. We're going for our patrol support side. And we're trying to target people that are kind of from the 25 age group up to about the 45 age group, which is, for us, is the high-hanging fruit. So, yeah.
Kia ora, thanks, Chris. Beth, you are all lined up properly. And did you guys... Okay, sorry. So can you tell us about changes that Field Days has taken to welcoming and onboarding new event volunteers?
Sure. Michelle, firstly, I'd just like to say that it's a privilege to be on this panel and that you recognise me as being a person that can help maybe the rest of you in the room with some of the comments, so thank you for that. So I have just actually made some notes because I think it's really important to get the right message across, and I didn't want to sort of lose my focus. So prior to taking on this role, as our volunteer engagement was simply like a phone call and then inviting them in to meet us, having a bit of an interview, and then that was kind of it until Field Days happened, and some of that could be up to 6 months before the event. And it really wasn't embracing that whole relationship and building that relationship. So in 2022, we embraced a new technology. We signed up with Rostify, volunteer and staff management system, and this sort of really transformed that whole entire process on how we attracted people, how we brought them on. We were able to see the flow of people. We were able to embed compliance training to make sure that everyone was compliant with our policies, our volunteer commitment statement, all of those sorts of things that meant that they then became, or they saw the value that we were putting in them as a volunteer, but also allowed us to feel supported, I suppose, in that we were looking after them. So that was really important to us. The best practice guidelines, which really reflects on the question that Michelle has asked us, really has supported us in the development of those processes that we have done. And although it might not be directly what the guideline says, it's given us that overarching approach to how we might want to develop our program and our processes as well. So when new volunteers signed up, they're required to complete that compliance training, have and confirm that the volunteer commitment statement sits with them, and that also supports that whole piece around a volunteers for no expectation. And that was quite relevant because you sometimes have volunteers that might think, oh, I'm going to get a voucher out of that, or I'm going to be reimbursed for this, or whatever. There can't be that level of expectation, and that's from a legal perspective, so we want to make sure that we hit that on the mark. In 2024, we initiated a new orientation sort of morning, which allowed all of our new volunteers to come together to be able to meet, have some kai and koreo, and then really start to understand what it was like to be a Field Days volunteer. It's kind of a very unique setup, a unique event, as I'm sure many of you know. It's huge, and it takes a lot of people, a lot of resource to deliver it across those 4 days. In 2025, we did have a new initiative, again built around the best practice guidelines, and that was around a buddy system. So making sure that our new volunteers felt supported when they came into the event, and that there was someone there that they could just text or call up on their phone. It wasn't a hand-holding exercise, it was about a support exercise, and I think that's really ensured that our newbies feel completely supported. So yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you, Beth. That's really comprehensive and very informative. Sheena, you're next on my list. Brilliant. So I kind of know the answer to this question, so thinking about volunteering leadership, how has Ballyful NZ embraced the BPGs to support and retain your volunteer leaders?
Well, this might be a case of what the board doesn't know. Sorry. So I've been in the role just over a year now, and there were 3 kind of stars that aligned for us to be able to embed the best practice principles. The first was that only 4 weeks within the role, I was privileged to come to Christchurch for the volunteering hui last year, when they were talking about what these guidelines are. And for me, I really connected in with the principles and what we're trying to achieve. Actually, volunteers are at the heart of our organisation. We do need to invest in our people, and when you do invest, people thrive. So I loved that at a high level, you could see it easily broken down. So I really connected with that as a principled approach. 2 weeks later, it was trial by fire. I came along to our Bellyful New Zealand hui. So every 2 years we get together, about 80 of our branch leaders come together for a weekend of learning and korero and lots of laughs. And there, it was really important to me as a new kid on the block to say, why Bellyful? And to talk about their own communities, and that when you gift your time, it's the most precious thing that you can ever give. So, because you don't get your time back, right? So when we get them to sign on to Bellyful, how do we then respect their time, and how do we make sure that it's not them trying to faff about trying to sign into our systems, and actually they had half an hour and they didn't actually use any of it to cook and deliver meals to whānau in their communities. They just got frustrated. And so the volunteer leaders told us what their problems were. They told us that it was they didn't have the right training, they needed some more support. Our onboarding process was fiddly. They couldn't get into our health and safety very easy. And so they told us what the problems were. And as the first proper task that I had to do as CE was to refresh the strategy. 3 years, we just had a rolling annual strategy. So what does shaping our future look like? And so by having, we had our annual volunteer engagement survey that we do every year, and we ask our volunteers, and we've had kind of light touch questions, great questions in the past, but we turned it upside down and we said, what does our vision, is it still relevant? Is our mission who we serve? And if you're going to task us as Bellyful New Zealand with our strategic priorities, what are they? And what are our values? How does this all align? So our volunteers told us what they wanted us to see us do. So what we did, it all lined up beautifully. And because it meant that our strategic priority, our volunteers shaped, we did change our vision, our mission. We're not feeding animals or anything like that now. We're not doing anything drastic. But people took ownership over that whole process, our whole strategy, and people was our strategic priority, our first strategic priority. And within the strategic priorities, we have volunteering best practice guidelines that we name it to say that we are going to embed these throughout. What you get then is you get ownership and really proud board. Our staff are totally committed. Our volunteers told us what the problems were, and we said, hey, look, here's something someone's already done for us. So we're just going to use this as our piece of work across that. So we did that. So that's, I think, because often I've been in the sector for nearly 20 years, and if you don't have the resources and the budgets to be able to do things, then you can only go so far. So if you can get that buy-in to see that if you really do care about our people, where is our volunteers and what's the resources that you're going to do, and then what's the training and development. And then very quickly after that, because we had to show, we then launched our Filling Bellies, Filling Mind development program, which is about leadership training. We've partnered with Ignite, Aotearoa, who've trialled with us, so our volunteers across the board can access counselling support if they need to, because actually when they're a coalface, and if they're turning down recipient requests, it's really hard because the needs up there are quite big, and just whole lots of different opportunities in there. So I rambled. I'm sorry.
No, you
That's
didn't.
kind of. So that's how we're doing that, and it's an ongoing thing. We've still got jobs to do, but we've made a start.
Thanks, Sheena. I think it's always an ongoing job, though, right? We've all got stuff to do. I might just move back, and this could be an open question, but I am thinking about Chris, because you've talked about the strategic plan and outing the BPGs. I have also seen English Language Partners has, in its current strategic plan, a real emphasis on volunteers, and I know Chris, Surf Lifesaving has done a lot of strategy and thinking. Is there anything you wanted to...
Yeah, so COVID was extremely tough on us as an organisation. As I said, our pipeline was cut off basically through younger people disengaging, but that was pretty normal around the whole of New Zealand at that stage. So we haven't grown as an organisation. We'd flatlined for the last 5 years. So in 2022, we ran a volunteer strategy working group session where we put together a volunteer working group, Volunteering New Zealand. Heidi gave us a lot of support in that. Thank you, Heidi. And we looked really deeply into our organisation about what it meant to be a volunteer for surf lifesaving, and we came out with a whole lot of strategic initiatives that we took forward. And I can say that we've almost achieved every one of those strategic initiatives in the last 3 years, and that's put us in a much better position. And central theme to that strategy was that we put our volunteers back at the centre of our organisation, so the heart in the middle really resonates with us as an organisation as well. And we've just gone through a reiteration of that volunteer strategy with a working group. And my view is that there's headwinds out there in society at the moment. There's a changing nature of volunteering, and the work that Volunteering New Zealand's done to inform that has really added to our picture. Also, as part of my MBA journey, I did my thesis around volunteer stress and burnout in our organisation. That really helped us inform what we're doing in terms of this strategy, and it also has helped us inform a big part of our recruitment campaign moving forward. And the recommendations that were in the 2024 Volunteering New Zealand report, you know, the work in my research actually backed up a lot of what they were saying as well. We were seeing that as well. So I really resonate with those, and I really appreciate the work that's done. So I think there's a lot of great work out there, and you've just got to pull from people that know that stuff. So.
Thanks, Chris. I think that's a good, everyone here in the room has something good to share with each other, so that's one of the key benefits of coming together, the hui. Annalie, have you got any plans or thoughts on next steps for Plunkett?
Yeah, definitely. I've got lots of plans, and so I really want to see this resource that they've dedicated to managing volunteers continue, which is in part of the role that I do, but also providing skills and learning opportunities for our teams across the country managing volunteers. So our teams do wonderful jobs. Their roles are really diverse. It's just volunteer management is part of their role, so I really want to make sure that they're confident in looking after our volunteers, they're given the tools they need, and so advocating for financial resource to keep our program, because not only do we want to upskill, but we also want to celebrate our volunteers. So and celebrations should happen over the course of the year. There's lots of things that I want to see happen over the for however long, I don't think this journey's ever finished, so, yeah.
Thank you. Just do a time check. Okay, good, got a lot of time. So, in a minute I'm going to throw a question around exiting volunteers, but I thought I might just come back to you, Beth, if you are willing. And so, obviously, within the event volunteering space, how have you embraced training and growing volunteers? Are there some insights you can share?
Sure. So training really remains a sort of an area that we're quite challenged with, I think, across the volunteer sector. It's one of those things that is probably last looked at compared to bringing people on, onboarding them, making them feel comfortable. And this was kind of really identified to me when I attended the Best Practice Guidelines workshop in Taupo last year. We'd broken up into groups, and we all sort of had a white piece of paper. We all had to write our pieces on there, and the training one was empty. No one went to it, no one did anything with it. So it clearly indicated that there was a lack of understanding how we actually train our volunteers and what we need to give them so that they can grow and develop and all that kind of stuff. So I engaged one of our new volunteers, because she had excellent skills in developing training programs and things. She was a master's student from the University of Waikato, And she came on as a volunteer to help me develop a training, sort of like a review plan for our leadership team and our board to have a look at and how we wanted to train our volunteers. And she was absolutely amazing. The actual report covered 3 areas. It was around why do we need to train, what type of training do we need to do, and how are we going to deliver that training. And so it was broken up into those 3 groups. And it was a full-on research document that she did, looking at lots of different areas globally and nationally as well, and all of the things that we could do to make that plan or to put that plan into action. Since the plan, we have commenced a training development program, and although we haven't rolled anything out as yet, because Field Days is not until June next year, I've got some time up my sleeve, we are looking at trying to offer lots of different ways of training. So it might be through reading a document, a video training. We may use AI for some of that as well, even though Andrew said don't use AI video. We'll probably make the video ourselves, but then maybe an AI voiceover or something like that to help spread the message or what that training is. And we also will be using the Rostify platform as well from a module perspective, so that we can track what that training is, someone's actually done it, do we need to support them a little bit more and making sure that they're compliant and all those sorts of things. And probably just 3 insights, Michelle, to finish off. So important to think about the ways you can deliver training that suit the varying ways that people learn, e.g. in-person, video, print for some, it's how they learn best. Keeping the training modules short, so you're offering sort of learning bites rather than long, detailed types of information to read, because otherwise they sort of get lost in all of the detail. And then using a system where you can track how the volunteers are being trained, especially if the training is required from a compliance point of view.
Awesome, thank you. Your note about the training blank page actually ties in nicely for the 7th part of the best practice guidelines, which is focused on exiting volunteers. So also in COVID, was when we started doing the best practice review, and what we really noticed during that period was we got lots and lots of really complicated phone calls that nobody could answer. But when you dug down into, from volunteers and from volunteer leaders, organisations, when you dug down into it, this was probably at the end of the cycle for the person in the organisation. But typically what we saw was that no one had done anything at the start in terms of there's missing policies, missing role descriptions, missing training, development, acknowledgement, all that sort of stuff. So, and when we do run our workshops across the country, the exit session is also sometimes a bit of a blank space as well. But has anyone got anything that to share in terms of development or good practice or things that you've done in farewelling volunteers? Also noting that it's really, volunteering is a choice, right? So, and volunteers can leave, and we should be celebrating through that process as well.
It's a work in progress for us. It's on our to-do to get to the exit, the proper bit. What we have done in terms of, there was quite a shame for some of our volunteers when life got too much, especially in our branch leadership, around, I actually can't do it anymore. And so what we found when people were leaving, it was burnout and just a box at the door, I'm out. And so one of the awesome speeches, the sessions at the last year's Hui was from Linda at Lions, where she said we often look at the people who are already in the roles, and we're not building up teams, and we're not really giving people the tools and training. And I've got a little quote and I do want to share it because it's a bit of a cool one for us around why you should look at the volunteer training and what is it that they need, and thinking about training in a wider context, because I've been in roles in volunteering and think, oh my God, I've done my health and safety. I've, done that when in my working career, it'd go away. But how you make it around what are the skill set and what are the things that they could grow. And for this particular branch that fed back, their branch was getting a little bit, she had so much enthusiasm, so much. But she was getting really burnt out. She she had all these ideas, but the team wasn't necessarily coming along with her. And so we've put in some people leadership skills, because often our volunteers are sitting in leadership roles and they're leading teams. And so we've done a whole lot around on-job, but people leaders, some of the soft skills. And some of the feedback that she came at, she's just finished a 3-month kind of program with us, but it's an ongoing one. She said the most valuable thing I learned is to let go of trying not to control everything, not to do everything myself. I've stepped back a bit and things are running smoothly. This course has changed my way of thinking and how I can lead my team in a different way, letting them know that they've got a sense of belonging, purpose and autonomy. And key aspects I've gained is listening, patience, and not everyone is as enthusiastic as I am. And I'm still learning, and if I make a mistake, that's okay, as long as I learn from this. And so I think it's really important that, you know, especially when we're in paid roles, that we don't come in and think we need to have the solution for everyone, that if you can play in the sandbox and be like, hey, we're all learning, the community is changing, we are all changing, we're not going to get this in overnight, but let's give it a go, because if we've got those principles and what are we trying to achieve, then I think you've got a pretty cool space to play in, and it's much more forgiving.
Thanks, Gina. Does anyone else want to add?
Just coming back to the exiting, I think in the past we've often thought of it as a negative thing when people have chosen to leave, but it's really understanding their journey, and as long as they've had a positive experience, it's okay that they don't stay for 15 years. You know, as long as what they've done, they've got, you know, mutually beneficial from the relationship. So, yeah, so I think it's more understanding why they've left, and making sure we do know that they've left. Yeah, so. Yeah.
And I think although they may leave, we're still in relationship with them.
Absolutely, and they may choose to come back.
Yeah, come back,
yeah.
Talk about us, donate.
And what we're finding is that people, their volunteering journey may be for a shorter period of time than what we've seen in the past. Yeah, so.
Cool. Is it 12:25 we finish, or 12:30? Okay. I thought you were the boss. You're the timekeeper boss. I've not read the schedule properly. Okay. Okay. Would anyone like to add a final note or something else on exit? Chris?
I've got one thing to add. In SURF, we looked at our whole membership database, and we had we thought was about 30% on average churn per year in our members, and you've got to realise there's a lot of junior surf members in there that dip their feet in the water. But what we were finding is when we dug into the stats more, people would go away for a period of time and then come back. So it was our strength of brand and our strength of our systems and processes that would bring people back into the organisation as well. And our actual churn rate is less than 15%, which is pretty good for a big organisation. So even though, and I agree, we're not the greatest at exit interviews as well, but what we should be doing is focusing on it. It's coming up in our 25 version of our volunteer strategy, and that's something we would really like to dig into a bit more. So I'd really reiterate, it's an important part of volunteering. You've got to know that people are leaving for genuine reasons, or they're leaving because they're not happy. And if you can go to curing that, then I think you'll be more successful as an organisation.
Absolutely. I know exit looks different when it's a once-a-year event, Beth, but do you want to add anything?
Yeah, absolutely. So a little bit like Chris, the Field Days brand is very, very powerful, and a lot of our volunteers come to us because of that brand. So they stay with us generally for a very long length of time. We're celebrating this year another person that's done 50 years of volunteering, and he will get a really special award. It's got a copper thing on it. It's really amazing. And we've got 40 years and 30 years. Like, it's just incredible the amount of time that people spend with us. In saying that, though, probably 75 to 80% of our volunteers are of a mature age, and so they're coming to a time in their life that volunteering at such a big event where it's so intense and so full on, it's not for them anymore, and so they choose to move away, but they still want to stay connected. So I haven't done this yet because it is in best practice guidelines, and I want to do it from exiting, so I'm trying to sound good, Michelle. But also in Rosterify, we have different checkpoints, and I'm going to create a new checkpoint in there of former volunteers, former members, so that keeps them in that little group where I can potentially still send them our quarterly newsletter, keeping them connected. They're not actually leaving us completely. And then if at any time they want to come back, I pull them out of that checkpoint and put them into the live volunteer one. So, yeah, really important.
Thank you, Beth. Right, that is, I'm getting the look from Curtis. It's the time. Please, could you put your hands together to thank our panellists?